Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Holy Happy Hour. I am your host, Josh, and we are back in the new studio. If this is your first time seeing the new studio, this is a little corner of my spare room, but we got our really simple setup and some things that I wanted to point out of the reasoning behind the background. First of all, faith and tradition, what the Catholic Church is founded on. Obviously, Jesus Christ on the crucifix is just being the example of just true love laid out. The Catechism, obviously giving us great ways to live and what the Catholic Church teaches. This is a great book that honestly I personally need to dive into more. And then my goal with this channel is to be a light on YouTube. And so the candles for ambiance, as we always say in this house, but also just to remind me and remind the channel, remind anyone on the channel, my guests, the interviews and stuff, that our goal is to be a light in this world. And then over here, this is a beautiful picture, which is kind of a little hard to see. You guys might be able to see it. Maybe it's just my eyes, but it is Jesus holding a baby, which just wanted to be reminded of the two babies we lost. So really wanted them to be part of this channel because we're always asking them to pray for me as a father, for me as their father, even though they're in heaven. And then me as a host of this channel and someone that's hoping to spread joy through YouTube. So I wanted to throw that out there. So today we are doing another review. You guys have liked the review so far. We did a review, which we'll put in the comment section, review of the Michelle Dupont documentary. And the views went really great. It seemed like something you guys really, really enjoyed. And so I wanted to continue that. And as I looked into other things that we could do, I thought this is going to be great. This is going to be perfect. And so I'm going to encourage you guys to go along with us. Is we're going to do reviews of movies and books, specifically ones that you guys should be reading either individually or as a couple, a married couple, a dating couple, whatever. And obviously specifically married because me and my wife are married 5 years now. And so we are going to be diving into some of the books that we either are going to read together. The one today we have read separately, and I think she's finishing it up, but we're going to read it together again. So we're actually going to do, this is going to be part one of the book review of Spousal Prayer. But you guys will also see movie reviews as well. Unfortunately, you guys cannot see the Michelle Dupont documentary anymore. So if you missed it in theaters, you may have missed out. I'm sure Focus will put it out at some point. I'll reach out to Dr. Shree and Curtis Martin for you guys to see if we can figure out when they are going to air that again. Because if you guys missed it, you guys missed out. It's such a great documentary. So I thought it'd be great, though, to do some reviews, again, because you guys liked it, but also to do some reviews to let you guys know what I thought. So today's review is over this book, and it's obviously probably backwards because of my camera, but it's Spousal Prayer. This is a book by Deacon James Keeting, and it is a wonderful, very little book that everyone should read individually and with your spouse. I kind of just randomly decided as we started this in discipleship, I kind of thought to myself, me and Lindsay should read this together. But then I decided, you know what, let's finish this first as a discipleship group of just men where we can talk about maybe where our shortcomings are or where we see success in our marriage. So let's start there, and then we'll read it again as a couple. So me and Lindsay have not yet read this together, but that'll be part two, is me and Lindsay doing a book review of this book together. So I wanted to start with this. First off, when we got it, I pointed out, I was like, the endorsements on the back of this book are awesome. But I realized, we got Ralph Martin, a PhD associate and professor of theology from Sacred Heart Major Seminary in Detroit, Michigan. But I also noticed that the very top one is a local, the Archbishop of Oklahoma City, Reverend Coakley. So Bishop Coakley is actually an endorsement of this book, and I thought that was really cool. And our focus missionary who walked us through this actually did not even realize that it was endorsed by him, and that's just kind of a cool, random, small world. So now this book, a couple things I like about it. Obviously, I'm not going to be a master in it. There's going to be tons of stuff I forget about it. There's some things I didn't quite understand. I'm excited to go back through with my wife, and there are a lot of things that I learned from it as well. But this book is broken into sections. So if you're like me and you're not a reader, this is a great one for you, because you will see that. That's the introduction. Let me get to the first, or A section. So, like, beholding your spouse is this 2 pages, and then it ends the next page later. Like, so that's how we did it, is we read section at a time. It says, first of all, the one thing I loved about this book was that the sections were concise. They were quick and concise, and so you were able to get the information. It was packed full of great knowledge, but it was short enough that you didn't feel like if you're like me, that your attention started to draw elsewhere, and you started to kind of lose focus, and you just seem to forget where you're at, kind of what I just did in that whole sentence. But anyway, so the sections are super short, and I really, really like that. We had a priest one time tell us, I read 10 pages a day of a book, not because that's all he can read, but he said, I care to understand the book, not just finish the book. And I thought that was a great message to everyone, that's how it should be, that we should be wanting to understand books and not necessarily finish them. And if you are one of those people, kind of like my wife, who can read 10 books in a month, but she can go back and tell you like all the details of every single one, then that's awesome and you got a great gift. But if you're like me, which I'm assuming is most of you guys will probably see these, and you guys will come across books like this, and you'll do it this way, and you'll understand it a lot better. So jumping into a few of the pages, and obviously I'm not going to give away a lot because I want you guys to actually read the book. But one of the first sections is about beholding, and this was a topic that I didn't quite understand. And when we got into it, it was super cool to see that before you can listen to your spouse, before you can trust your spouse, before you can maybe not trust, but forgive your spouse, before you can really get into a deep emotional intimate relationship, you have to first behold your spouse. And so a lot of you guys may be thinking, like, what does that even mean? And I'm probably not the best person to tell you about that, but I love this sentence. To behold means that you allow your spouse's heart, your spouse's identity, to be received at the deepest level of your being. To behold your spouse means that you have allowed your spouse's presence to affect you, move you, and awaken you to love. And I thought that was so beautiful. To behold your spouse means that you've allowed your spouse's presence to affect you, move you, and awaken you to love. This kind of brought up the conversation about the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase in a relationship that we've all experienced before, whether it's dating or even in marriage, that it's just because you kind of fall out of that honeymoon phase doesn't necessarily mean that that's the wrong person for you. It might just mean that you are past this kind of, I can look past all their faults and everything, into the real, like you're into the realness of the relationship. That's where everything gets kind of tough, but it's also where everything gets really beautiful. And I think if you can't truly behold your spouse, where their presence and their, like I said, their presence affects you, where when they walk into a room, your attitude changes, your eyes are on them, you've noticed, like, then you can't quite get to these other stages. It's harder to get these other stages of listening to them and forgiving them. And so I thought that was a great section that it starts with. This, like, right out of the gate, it talks about beholding your spouse. And this is all obviously talks about praying with your spouse, like spousal prayer, praying for your spouse, praying with your spouse. And so to first do that, you've gotta be able to behold your spouse. There's a lot of great information in that. Now the next section gets into listening to your spouse, and before you comment anything, it's exactly what you think. Like, listening to your spouse, we got to be able to be able to not listen to respond. We got to be able to not be distracted. So there was obviously lots of great stuff in this section that really related to both sides of us. And as you can see, like, we highlighted tons of stuff. This is actually my wife's book, because we have lent out my book. Whoa, as I hit this, we have lent out my book to someone, of a friend. But let's see if I can find that. The more common level of listening is well known to any spouse. It is simply the commitment to pay attention to your spouse's words and the disposition of their heart from which these words are born. And I don't know about you, but I've had times before where she's talking and my mind is just racing with other things. She's talking and I am watching, if the TV's ever on. It actually mentions that in here, I believe, of like the TV's on, and so you're not actually listening, because even if you're looking at her but the TV's on over here and you're hearing that, you're not fully there. So to be able to listen to our spouse, we need to be fully present, fully there, and fully committed. And nothing else should be as important to us than our spouse. Whether we're in a tiff, an argument, whatever, our spouse is the most important person in our lives. And so we should want to give them our full attention every time we go. I mean, when we go to Mass, I would hope, when we go to Mass, but aside from kids, I mean, kids crawling around and distracting you, it really like gets you, me, I'll speak for me, I'll speak for everybody, I'm sure it does, but it gets me super frustrated. So we should think of those distractions, and they should frustrate us as much as it does when we're trying to give our full attention to Jesus at Mass. We should want to give that same full attention to our spouse when they are coming to us. If we behold them, that listening part comes so much more natural. And so, such a great section, and a lot to receive in that. Now, listening and beholding, there's all sorts of there's different sections. There's another behold section, another listen section, that is more like communion with God. And so after it gets in the spouse, it does the exact same stuff of doing, beholding our Lord. So when coming into Mass, do we have that same thing? We come into Mass and we are deeply affected and changed because we're in the presence of God in the Holy Eucharist. Are we wanting to listen and give our full attention and be attentive? And so it obviously does some parallels between marriage and our relationship with Jesus as well, because you can't focus on one without the other. Obviously, we need to focus on our personal relationship with God, and the more we try to perfect that relationship, the more we will naturally want to listen more to our spouse and be with our spouse and perfect that relationship as well. So great book. And again, I didn't want to give away too much. It does get into the next one, is repent and forgiveness. And then there's the last chapter 3 is fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything. And it's just got some like really great quotes in here, like this first one, like, nothing is more practical than finding God. That is, than falling in love in quite absolute final way. What are you in love with? What seizes your imagination will affect everything. And so it's talking about fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything. Such a great chapter that it finishes on, giving us some practical steps for how we can move forward and go into our relationships, continuing to perfect and listen to God. And I don't know about you guys, but I could definitely use that. So this book is a 10 out of 10 recommendation. I would prepare to be humbled a little bit. Go into this open-minded. Go into this knowing that this one is going to expose you a little bit. But both you and your spouse need to go into reading it together, knowing when I say I'm weak in this, that we don't turn to each other and say, yeah, you are. See, I told you. I've been telling you this forever, because that's not going to be effective. We want to go into this book and we want to love each other and be so overjoyed that both of us are wanting to come together to grow in our relationship with God, because we know it's like a triangle. If God's up here and I'm here, my wife's here, we can grow closer together the more we grow closer to God. As we try to grow closer together this way, there's going to be a lot of friction, and because there's a lot of tension coming this way, but naturally, if we just go the path to God, the smoother path, then we will naturally just have less affect us, and it will always turn out better. So Spousal Prayer, I'll include a link, and this is an unpaid, I don't get paid for these reviews or anything, obviously, so this is an unpaid, I don't get commission off this. I really prayerfully hope you consider reading this book, and I would also recommend read it alone with your closest guy friends and be super honest and humble to admit what you struggle with, and then read it with your spouse and talk to each other beforehand, letting each other know, I want to be super vulnerable. I want to admit my shortcomings. I want you to trust me enough to also be vulnerable, that this will be a serious moment, a serious time. If you're like me and my wife, we love to joke around. And so sometimes we got to kind of like preface the conversation with that. It's like, hey, this isn't a time for jokes. I'm going to be opening my heart. You're going to be opening your heart. Let's let's make sure we're very supportive of each other, and let's grow. Let's throw our shortcomings out there, and the more we can put our shortcomings out there, we can assist each other. Remember, you're on the same team. Spousal prayer is going to help you guys grow in your relationship with God and grow closer together, and it's going to help you guys pray together as well. I know it can be awkward, it can be strange, but it's going to be a game changer in your marriage. So that's what we're focusing on in our marriage. That is my book review. 10 out of 10. You guys should get onto it. I promise you these book reviews, movie reviews will not always be 10 out of 10, but I wanted to start with one that I knew was a 10 out of 10. So we got a 10 out of 10 Michelle DuPont documentary, 10 out of 10 Spousal Prayer book. We'll get into some other book reviews next. You guys can comment below. What do you guys think the next book review should be? I would love to get your guys' feedback. Other than that, you guys have a great rest of your Friday, second day of Christmas. Or would it be third day of Christmas, I think, because 25th would be the first, I guess. So third, whatever one it is. You guys have a blessed week, and we will see you guys next week. We'll be continuing with our interviews, and then get ready for our Lenten series coming up, which is the 7 vices and their opposing virtues. We're going to have a different guest for each vice, and I'm super excited for that, and that will come on during Lent, maybe a little before. But you guys have a great week. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.